The Central Hospital was a maze of white corridors and hurried people, but for Dr. Jordan Parker, that place was like a second home. At 36, he had built a solid reputation as one of the best cardiologists in the region. With his piercing blue eyes, meticulously groomed brown hair and gentle smile, it was common to see nurses sighing as he passed by. It wasn't just his appearance that attracted people, but also his compassionate nature and ability to make patients feel understood. Jordan had grown up in a family of doctors, his father, a renowned neurosurgeon, and his mother, a dedicated pediatrician. Since childhood, he had watched how his parents treated patients with dignity and respect, and this shaped his view of medicine. For him, each patient was a whole person, not just a set of symptoms to be treated. On that autumn morning, as she walked down the hallway of the physiotherapy department, Jordan noticed a woman she hadn't seen before. She was facing away, talking to the head physiotherapist, Dr. Miranda. Her reddish-brown hair fell in waves to her shoulders. When she turned around, Jordan saw the scars, burn marks climbing up the right side of her neck and disappearing under the collar of her long-sleeved blouse. Christina Walsh was 34 years old and had been a firefighter for 10 years before the accident that changed her life. The only child of a retired firefighter, she grew up hearing stories of heroism and rescues. Her father, Thomas Walsh, had always taught her about courage and commitment to others. When she turned 24, Christina followed in her father's footsteps, becoming one of the few women in her battalion. As a firefighter, Christina was known for her persistence and skill in crisis situations. She had a natural talent for calming victims trapped in dangerous situations, especially children. Her firm voice and expressive green eyes conveyed confidence even in the tensest moments. Now, 8 months after the accident, she was at the hospital 3 times a week for physiotherapy. The visible scars were just a small part of the marks she carried. "Christina, this is Dr. Parker, our cardiologist," introduced Dr. Miranda. Christina extended her left hand, a gesture that Jordan immediately noticed. Her right arm, although functional, still had movement limitations due to the scars. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Doctor," she said with a reserved smile. "The pleasure is mine." "Are you new around here?" Jordan asked, immediately intrigued by her. "Not exactly. I've been doing physical therapy for a few months, but usually at different times." The conversation was brief, but something about that woman captured Jordan's attention. It wasn't just the scars, but the dignity with which she carried them, not trying to hide them completely, although a certain discomfort was noticeable when she perceived curious glances. In the following weeks, Jordan met Christina several times. Through casual conversations, he discovered that she had been a firefighter and got injured on the job. Christina never went into details about the specific accident, subtly changing the subject whenever the conversation approached that topic. One day, Jordan invited her for coffee at the hospital cafeteria after her physical therapy session. To his surprise, she accepted. "People always ask about my scars," commented Christina, observing her reflection in the diner window. "As a doctor, I imagine you see things like this every day." Jordan nodded. "I see scars every day, yes, but each one tells a different story. As a doctor, I've learned that nothing is perfect in the human body. In fact, it's our small imperfections that remind us that we are not gods, but humans trying to do the best we can." Christina looked at him with an expression that mixed surprise and relief. "Most people look away or pretend they don't see," she said softly. "Or worse, they look with pity." "I see no reason for pity," Jordan replied sincerely. "I see a woman who risked her life to save others. That deserves admiration, not pity." That coffee marked the beginning of something special. In the following months, they started meeting regularly. Jordan discovered that Christina had a sharp sense of humor and a passion for classical literature. She, in turn, appreciated the way he treated her, not as a victim or a curiosity, but as a complete person. The first kiss happened on a rainy night when Jordan walked her to her apartment after dinner. It was gentle and hesitant, as if they were both testing unknown waters. Their relationship surprised many in the hospital. The nurses whispered about how the handsome Dr. Parker had fallen for the firefighter with scars. Jordan ignored the comments, but Christina felt them like small stabs. "I don't understand what you see in me," she confessed one night while they were sitting on her apartment's balcony, watching the city lights. "You could have any woman." Jordan held her hand, his fingers interlaced with hers. "I see a courageous, intelligent and beautiful woman who makes me want to be better every day," he replied. "The scars are just part of your story, Christina, and I want to know all the parts." A year after that first coffee, Jordan proposed to Christina during a picnic at the city's botanical park. It was an intimate and perfect moment in its simplicity. Christina cried when she said yes, not only out of happiness, but also disbelief that she had found someone who loved her completely. The wedding was small, with only family and close friends. Christina's father, with tears in his eyes, walked her down the aisle. Jordan waited at the altar, his face lit up with a smile that spoke more than any words could express. Their married life began in a house on the outskirts of the city, with a garden that Christina tended to with dedication. Jordan continued at the hospital, now as head of the cardiology department, while Christina started working as a first aid instructor in schools and companies. It was 3 months after the wedding that Jordan woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of anguished groans. Christina was having a nightmare, her body tense and sweaty, disjointed words escaping her lips. "Christina, wake up, you're dreaming." He gently shook her. She opened her eyes, disoriented and frightened. For a moment she seemed not to recognize him. Then reality returned, and she nestled into his arms, trembling. "Sorry for waking you," she murmured against his chest. "Don't apologize. Do you want to talk about it?" Christina shook her head negatively. "Just the same old demons as always. Nothing you need to worry about." But Jordan was worried. That was neither the first nor the last nightmare. They happened frequently enough to establish a pattern. Christina always refused to discuss them, insisting it was just the residual stress from her years as a firefighter. Jordan respected her space but noticed there was something deeper, a wound that wasn't healing despite the time. The visible scars were healing well. The invisible ones seemed as fresh as on the first day. One night, after a particularly intense nightmare, Christina finally opened up. They were sitting in the kitchen, 2 steaming cups of tea between them. Outside, the rain was softly falling, creating a curtain of sound that seemed to isolate them from the rest of the world. "You know I was a firefighter for 10 years, she began, her eyes fixed on the cup in front of her. "What you don't know is that the scars you see came from my last day of service." Jordan reached for her hand, offering silent support. Christina took a deep breath and continued. "It was a residential building in the city centre. The fire started on the 3rd floor, but it spread quickly. When our team arrived, the flames had already consumed half of the building." She paused, reliving that day in her memory. Jordan could see the pain in her eyes, almost as if she could feel the heat of the flames again. "Our team managed to get most of the residents out. I was leading a family out when the mother panicked, screaming that her youngest daughter had been left behind. You know, sometimes, in emergency situations, children get scared and hide." Christina took a sip of tea, her hands slightly trembling. "My captain ordered us not to go back. The building was about to collapse and it was too late. But I..." She closed her eyes. "I couldn't abandon that child. I disobeyed orders and went back." Jordan shook her hand, feeling the weight of the decision she had made. "I found the girl hiding under the bed on the 4th floor. She was terrified, barely able to breathe because of the smoke. I took off my protective coat to cover her, knowing it would expose me more, but she was so small, so defenseless." The tears began to fall, silent and painful. "We were almost reaching the stairs when the floor gave way. I remember falling in the intense heat. After that, everything went dark." Christina released Jordan's hand and touched the scars on her neck, an almost unconscious gesture. "I woke up 3 days later in the hospital. I had 2nd and 3rd degree burns on my arms and part of my neck, but the worst part wasn't the physical burns. It was discovering that the little girl didn't survive. She finally looked directly at Jordan, her eyes red from tears held back for so long. Her name was Lily. She was only 5 years old. I failed, Jordan. I risked everything to save her, and in the end I couldn't. Jordan stood up and hugged her, feeling her body tremble with sobs. You didn't fail, Christina, he whispered. You did more than most would have the courage to do. The family I saved, I could never face them after that. They lost a daughter because of me. How could they not hate me? You can't know what they feel, Jordan replied, stroking her hair. Maybe they are grateful that you saved the rest of the family. Christina shook her head, incredulous. I should have been faster, stronger. I should have done something different. That night marked a turning point. The secret Christina carried had been shared, but the guilt still remained. Jordan realized that knowing the truth about his wife's scars was just the beginning of the healing process. In the following weeks, Jordan began to discreetly research the family Christina had mentioned. It wasn't difficult to find them. The fire had been reported in the local newspapers. The Reynolds family had lost their youngest daughter, but the parents and 2 other children had survived thanks to the courage of a firefighter. Without counting Christina, Jordan reached out to Robert Reynolds, the head of the family. The initial conversation was cautious, but when Jordan explained who he was and why he was calling, the man's voice changed. Your wife. Does she think we blame her for Lily's death? Robert asked, surprised. Nothing could be further from the truth. We've been trying to find her for years to thank her. Without her, we would have lost our entire family, not just our little Lily. Jordan felt a lump in his throat upon hearing those words. Just as he suspected, the guilt Christina carried was self-imposed. She suffers a lot because of it, Jordan admitted. The nightmares, the guilt. Please, Robert asked, let us talk to her. Maybe if she knows how we truly feel, it might help her find some peace. A week later, on their wedding anniversary, Jordan prepared a special dinner at home. Christina was surprised to see the table set for 4 people. Are we expecting guests? She asked, confused. Yes, Jordan replied, nervous but determined. People who have been waiting a long time to speak with you. When the doorbell rang, Jordan saw the blood drain from Christina's face as she recognized the Reynolds couple standing at the door. For a moment she seemed about to flee, but Jordan held her hand firmly. Trust me, he whispered. Just listen to what they have to say. Dinner began tensely, with Christina barely managing to make eye contact with the Reynolds. Then, Sarah Reynolds, the mother, broke the silence. Christina, we have tried to find you for years, she said, her voice choked with emotion. We wanted to thank you for what you did for our family. Christina looked at her, incredulous. Thank? I didn't save Lily. I failed you. Robert shook his head. You risked your life to enter that hell again for our daughter. No other firefighter dared to do that. Without you, we would have lost not only Lily, but also our other children. They are alive today thanks to your courage. Sarah grabbed the bag and took out a small photo album. We would like you to meet our family, she said, opening the album. This is Lily. She pointed to the photo of a smiling girl with curly hair. And these are Daniel and Emma today. Daniel dreams of studying medicine, inspired by the doctors who took care of all of us after the fire. And Emma, she wants to be a firefighter when she grows up because of the brave lady firefighter who saved her family. Tears were freely running down Christina's face now, but they were different from the tears of guilt that Jordan had witnessed before. They were tears of relief, of a weight finally being lifted. I carry Lily in my heart every day, Sarah continued. The pain never completely goes away, but I also carry gratitude for what you did. You are not responsible for her death, Christina. The fire, the poorly constructed building, the faulty alarm system. So many things contributed to that tragedy. But you are the reason we still have a family. That night, after the Reynolds left, Christina and Jordan sat on the garden swing watching the stars. Christina rested her head on her husband's shoulder, a feeling of peace enveloping her for the first time in a long while. "How did you know?" she asked. "How did you know this was exactly what I needed?" Jordan smiled, kissing her forehead. "Because I know you. I know you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Some scars take longer to heal, especially those we cannot see." Christina looked at the stars, thinking of Lily, the lives she had saved, and the man by her side who saw beyond the scars, who saw her whole soul, with all its imperfections, pains, and beauties. "Thank you for showing me that my scars do not define who I am," she said, entwining her fingers with his. "They are just chapters of my story, a story that is still being written." Jordan smiled, thinking of how fate had brought them together in that hospital corridor. As a doctor, he knew that healing was rarely instant. It was a process, with advances and setbacks. Christina would still have occasional nightmares, would still carry painful memories. But now there was room for healing, for forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness. "Each scar tells a story of survival," he said, looking at the stars beside her. "And your story, Christina Parker, is far from over. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.